Petra, and this is Kelly, and today we'll be interviewing Catherine Cook.
She was the founder of My Yearbook, which is now Meet Me, and she started this business at age 15.
Catherine recently graduated from Georgetown, and we're very happy to sit down and talk to her today.
Thank you both so much for having me.
So Catherine, the first question we have for you is, how did you balance work and school in both high school and in college?
Well, it's definitely difficult. A lot of it just comes down to time management, figuring out, what's most important to you, not even just in general, but at that moment in time. Like, is it so important that I finish this one task for my yearbook first, or is it more important that I finish an essay or something like that?
Yeah.
So really, there's a lot of just kind of like a game time decisions for what I should be working on at that moment. But what was great is that in college, my professors actually were phenomenal. They really helped me out in a lot of ways. My very first college midterm exam, I realized I was going to be gone on that day to actually speak at a conference in South Korea. And so,
oh wow.
So like going into, my first, I'm still like a scared little freshman. It's my first major exam. And I go up to the professor, and this is one of the, more stern professors. He calls everyone, he always called me Ms. Cook, and, they're very formal. So he had this very strict, absolutely no makeup policy. As soon as I told him about the company, though, he was just ecstatic. He was like, yeah, of course, go, make it up when you come back, whatever works. And I've noticed a few of my professors did the same, and that just having that support from them meant a lot. I mean, not only would I be able to get some things postponed and, some exams pushed back a little bit, it was just nice to know that they knew about it and were willing to help me and just wanting to know about it. It's very nice.
So how did your family respond to you and your brother starting a business in high school?
They responded very well, especially my mom. For her, our grades were also very important, especially when we were first starting out, and there really wasn't anything to show for all the work we were doing. She wanted to make sure that we wouldn't let our grades slip. But at the same time, looking back, it's kind of crazy to think of just how supportive she was and how much she kind of let us get away with as we were working on building the site. Because we would be up until 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, most nights while we were working on building it, just chatting with our developers in Mumbai. And while still having to get up at 7:30 in the morning homeroom. And she knew all of this, but she, didn't say, no, you have to go to bed, or anything like that. She was very, very supportive. She wanted to see what came of it. And then when we had gotten our first 1 million members, I can't say she necessarily understood what the site did or anything like that, but she's always been very, very supportive. What's also nice is just she's always willing to talk about, talk through different things, different aspects of the site. And it's nice just to have that trust. And I'm so glad that me, Dave, and Chap were all very close with our mom. So it's nice to... It's nice that we have such a close family.
Okay, so how did your peers react?
When we were first building it, we kind of kept it a secret until we launched. Part of that, it wasn't really necessarily that we didn't want them to steal our idea or anything. It didn't have anything to do with that as much as that we just kind of wanted to do a grand unveiling. And so we had told them that we were working on something. And when we had first done that, they were kind of like, you're working on a website? How, they knew that Dave and I, they knew we didn't code. We weren't the typical code people that just could sit there and hammer out websites. They knew that neither of us had any experience like that. So originally they were like, how are we going to do that? And just kind of thought that was going to happen. But then when we launched pretty soon after we had first taught them or told them that we were going to do it. It became the talk of the school with our peers, because the way we decided to get members was to have cool t-shirts. They said things like answering the questions that matter most, who are your friends, and are they hot? But it ended up becoming the talk of the school. People would come up to us at the cafeteria, in the hallways, and just tell us about their ideas and just want to talk about the site. One of my friends said it was the best procrastination tool ever. So we got great positive reviews in that way. And I will say, not all of my peers were positive, but the great majority of it were very supportive. There were a few negative people that the main consensus was positive and supportive.
Who were your role models and who did you look up to at that time?
I'd say my biggest role model is my oldest brother, Jeff. He owned a company when he was a sophomore, junior in college. And so he's 11 years older than me. And so when he started that company, he was 19, so I was around 8. And so I had grown up seeing him as an entrepreneur and seeing that this is, what it was like to do it. And I guess say visiting his office in Palm Springs, California was just so much cooler than going to my mom's office for Bring Your Child to Work Day. And so I realized, I want to be an entrepreneur. And that's what got me interested in it. And just watching his journey and how he does it is what keeps me interested in it. Because he's a very inspiring person. So a great role model. I mean, when we were starting out, Dave and I asked tons of questions. Of course, now he's CEO of Meet Me. But obviously, the three of us worked very closely together.
Any advice for getting taken seriously as a young entrepreneur with minimal experience?
Especially when we were very first starting out, we did a lot of things over email. And so you really can't tell the age of the person.
Yeah.
Which was nice. So, but then obviously eventually you do have to go to the in-person meetings. When we were raising our first round of venture capital, when I was going to the original meetings, I was still only 16. I didn't even have a driver's license to get past security. Like they had to write me in special. So in situations like that, what really helped me was just knowing that you might walk into the room and feel intimidated. You're staring at a bunch of billionaires when you're at a VC table, you're asking for millions of dollars and I even have a car. It just seems crazy. But at the same time, if you go in there confident and believe yourself and then let yourself kind of be carried by the passion you have for the idea, you stop thinking about age, and chances are, if they accepted a meeting with you, they already weren't thinking about, well, this person's only this age. I think just being able to have that meeting means that, that's almost off the table for things that matter in that situation, as long as you can express yourself.
What was the biggest obstacle when you were creating it?
I mean, the biggest obstacle for any, I think, new company is just to get those initial members and get people signing up, and get that awareness. I mean, we're still working on getting more awareness. At the time, it was a huge benefit in that we were in the school and could tell people, hey, sign up for it. But then growing past that, we had a few months where we had to figure that out. So we launched it in our high school in April. School year ends in June. And so we weren't really pushing to all schools until August because we had to figure out we need some plan. We need a plan for how we're going to do that. And we ended up being able to engineer virality by making all of our features very shareable on other sites. It was big at the time. Just figuring out how to do that strategy and how to make it so that we could maximize the new members coming from that was a big challenge. Just because when you're trying to gain traction, if you don't have, we're a social network. If you don't have members, you're nothing. There's nothing else to do there. So that was one of the biggest challenges. And we were very much, we had started in our school, so there was a lot of people that knew each other, but then as new members joined, they were really only using it to connect with new people. And so also making the site optimized for meeting new people was a huge goal in the beginning, trying to figure that one out. One of the benefits of being in the meeting new people space, if you show people near that person, then it doesn't matter as much if they don't have any friends on the network, because they still have lots of people that they can talk to. Whereas if you're trying to create a network where you have to know the people you're connecting to, then it's much, much more difficult, because not only do you need that person, but you also need all of their friends to join. We pretty much are the opposite of Facebook. And for us, that's the main use case.
Was your office really close to where you lived and you went to school?
It was pretty close. So it was a 20 to 25 minute drive from where we lived and went to school, which, depending on where you're from, that either sounds really close or that doesn't sound close at all. It was an easy commute for us. The reason we actually picked New Hope was because we wanted it to be easy driving distance from our school and also close to where Jeff lived. And we also wanted a small town feel. What's great about New Hope is it's not like we're in an office park where you have to drive to get anywhere.
How did you keep your voice and your core and your website while there were so many different potential investors and with different opinions?
I know that you wanted to stay where you were and you didn't want to move to New York and other things, so that's where that question comes from.
Yeah, so that's actually sometimes going to the meetings. Specifically, I'll use the example of the one firm in Boston that you're familiar with. We had a few meetings with them. It seemed like it'd be good, and when the time came to put down a term sheet, exactly what we were talking about, they changed some pretty important things. One, they wanted to put in some more money than we had originally talked about, which, that could sound great to some companies. More money is good, but that also means that you use equity and or giving up more. We didn't want to do that because we didn't want to lose our creative control. We wanted to make sure that if there's something that we thought the company needed, that we would be able to do it. And so that was a big red flag. They wanted us closer to them, and to them also in a more easily accessible area because it's not like New Hope has a giant airport in it. And so they wanted us in New York or San Francisco or Boston. And that was just not something that we were interested in doing. It was just too, Dave and I were, again, still in school at the time, so we didn't really want to do it for that reason. But also, New Hope had become a good part of our culture, and we wanted to keep our office there and keep our team there. And just in general, that the VCs wanted us to move was also just a bad sign, because that probably meant that they, wanted to be overly involved.
You decide to merge the company?
We decided to merge with K-Pasa because at the time we were only in the U.S. and we were just thinking, we want to be a global brand, and to do that we need an international presence. And around the same time was when we started talking to K-Pasa, and they basically did what we did, but in a different market. And so they had all of the South American and Mexican members, and we realized that, hey, this is a great opportunity because it gives us a chance to not only double our user base but also triple our addressable market. So it was a great deal in that way, in that we just gained this huge international presence all at once.
Okay, so how did you feel as a female entrepreneur while working on your business?
To be honest, I never really, the whole being female thing never really came up until I was maybe 21. Originally it's all about, hey, you're young. And Dave and I first launched, we got a weird buyout email that was just clearly just trying to confuse young kids and hope that they'll mess up early on. No, we're not going to do this. This is our business. We're going to build it. And so we got to things that related to our age, but I didn't actually notice any female differences until I was at a award ceremony, and I was one of the top 5 finalists for an entrepreneur pitch competition. Basically, I'm standing up there, we're getting our plaques, and then the next things that they give us are a bottle of cologne and a man's watch. That was kind of weird. It was the first time there really aren't a lot of females in.
What advice would you tell your younger self, knowing what you know now?
I would say probably not to sweat the small stuff. I know that seems it's kind of cliche, but at the same time, I think back and there's certain things that was really would really bother me at the time, but that didn't actually matter in the scheme of things. Or times you're constantly living in uncertainty, and getting used to that is quite difficult. And so I would try to probably get myself to get used to that a little quicker, because it really is a roller coaster. It's you have great, amazing days where everything's going well, but then that there could be bad news in the very next email you receive. Every time you hear your phone saying you got something new, you look into it, please be working. So it's a scary thing. I would say advice to my younger self would just be to not focus on things that you have no power of changing, but only focus on the things things that you can control, and keep innovating based on what you already know.
As our final question, what are some tips that you would tell other aspiring entrepreneurs like us?
Really, I when you think about it, ideas are a dime a dozen. It's I don't even say it's all about execution. So you might have this great idea, but until you put something down and actually start working on it, it doesn't matter. You need to start building it. And if you don't know where to start, a great place to start is just Googling things. When Dave and I had the idea, we had knowledge of any type of code or anything that a company would need, and so we just started Googling things that we would need and found some good answers. And now there's actually a ton of resources out there you can use. I know the YEC has a startup lab that has some information. Impact, any of those guys are always willing to help, and there's really advisors and mentors everywhere you look, as well as just online tutorials for how to do different things. So there's so much information out there to find that there's almost no excuse not to get started. And also, I like to quote Winston Churchill, because it's a pretty good quote. It's success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm. And I think it's important because entrepreneurs fail so much, and it's important to not let it stop you. You should figure out, why something failed, learn from that mistake, and do it again, and make it so you don't make that mistake again, but still keep trying. Because that's the only way you're going to get successful. Because as an entrepreneur, we've had at Meet Me in my yearbook, we've had feature launches that didn't go as we planned. Not everything we did had game-changing results. But it's all about, tracking your metrics and learning, why didn't this work? What can we do about it next time? And that's, I think, what will make you successful in the future, in the long term.
So is there anything else you want to add?
I would say, again, just echoing, just be about one thing and go build it.
Just do
And
it. Nike.
So, Catherine, you've been often referred to as the next female Mark Zuckerberg. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, Mark Zuckerberg's enormously successful, very smart guy. Being compared to him is just awesome.
Okay, so we would like to thank you on behalf of the Girls CEO Connection for taking the time to answer our questions today.
And talk to us. It was really fun meeting you.
Fun meeting both of you too, and thanks so much for reaching out. I'm so glad to do it.